welcome to edition 94 of All Killa, No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn, and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Just before we start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. This isn't hero worship. We do this podcast because we have a mutual interest in serial killers. As long as we are doing this podcast, it stops us from writing to them in prison.
Yes, this is a Halloween special. Ooh. It's also our birthday.
Happy birthday.
How many years now?
Is it 6?
We started
It's our 6th birthday?
2014.
Or is it a 7th birthday?
No, 8th birthday.
No, it can't be.
It is.
7th.
2022. We started in 2014.
15, 16, 17, 18, 19. What the fuck is going on in this world? I can't believe it's 8. It's going to school now.
It is. I mean, it's been going to school for 4 years.
But it's going to school.
If it was Victorian times, it'd already have 2 jobs by now.
Oh no, it'd be dead. We stuck up someone's fucking chimney. It's mad that happened, isn't it?
What, that we managed to do this for 8 years?
like when you actually think about child chimney sweeps.
Oh,
it's mad.
It's absolutely crackers, and so weird that who was, you know, when people go, who's the first person who looked like a cow's udders and like, oh, I'll suck on those.
Oh yeah.
But weirder than that, who's the person who sat there over a roaring fire with like lumps of soot falling down it because it was full, and narrowed their eyes and then looked over at the child sat there also staring at the fire and was like, I think I've solved the issue.
Narrowed their eyes. So happy Halloween. Woo.
Yes.
I guess if this is Halloween, there'll be people coming to the live show tomorrow.
Yes.
Because we're extending Halloween for everybody.
Yes.
Because we're good like that.
We are good like that. Yes, so we're really excited. Over 1,000 of you in one place for the Halloween show. We're really excited. We think we picked a banging case to talk about.
Yeah.
Which I've just completely forgot. Oh, no. Oh, my God, one of my favourites.
We're doing a... Well, there's a few things, isn't there, that we're going to discuss?
Well, we're going to do a bit of a sort of over... Do you know what, though? I don't think we'll have
medley.
time, because I think that we'll find loads about this case.
Okay, then.
But...
I can't remember who we've picked.
Parker Hume.
Of course we fucking have.
Yeah.
I was reading about it the other day.
It's fucking weird.
I'm excited for it. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
But here we are on Halloween. I'm drinking out of my Halloween cup from TK Maxx. Cannot wait for all that stuff to be reduced. I'm going to be in there scooping it up.
Honestly, Rachel, Halloween reduced section and Christmas reduced section. No, Christmas for clothes for me, because obviously all the sequins get really cheap. But Halloween, I wear bones all year round. You know, bones I consider a neutral. So
Do you know, it's funny, I've actually got a jumper with skeleton hands on. That's what I'm wearing at the moment.
Oh, really? I've got some really great bones. My favourite one is the Zilla Kids one that's got like a grey rib cage on it that's reflective. So if I wanted to go cycling, I'd be also very safe. And then it's got like a sort of velvet heart on it with pom-poms on the edges. It's really great.
I think I know the jumper you're talking about.
Yes, a big fan of that. And I wear that all year round because bones are a neutral. And do you know what? I know they're awful and they treat their workers terribly, but H&M's sale section Halloween used to be absolutely amazing.
And Christmas sale section there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, very good.
Do you decorate your house for Halloween?
I used to when I lived in Manchester. The problem is I have spooky stuff up all year round.
So, yeah.
So there's always, you know, like I'm looking at some creepy things now. I mean, there's always something around. But because I'm very rarely here as well during the months of October and November, I'm always away gigging. It's difficult.
Yeah.
But there's always something creepy about anyway.
Yes. I have now got a specific box with a few select pieces in it. Some sort of like stacking skulls, some little candle holders in the face of... They're like ghouls. But you're right, I have creepy stuff up all year as well. But what I'll do is I'll just concentrate into one room, the room that you walk into in my house, the first one.
Nice. I like it. What I should say as well before we crack on, as this is Halloween, I think I can say now, you can listen to my ghost podcast that came out today.
Ooh, exciting.
Ghoul Guide.
Great name.
Out today, wherever you listen to your podcasts. There you go, I've said it. It's out there in the universe. Look, I don't know if I'm allowed to yet, but I've said it now. so it's fine.
Yeah, it'd be fine.
What are they going to do? Tell me, ma'am.
No, it'd be fine. It's great. So is it all about... It's all ghostly stuff then?
It's basically, I went around various haunted locations in the UK. There's 3 ghost stories that I get told.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is real. The other 2 are completely made up. And it was very good because obviously, you know me and ghosts. It's been a long-standing relationship.
Yes.
I know a lot about them. So, and all the places we went to, I didn't know the ghost stories. And I did no Googling. Sometimes I didn't even know the location we were going to, only the place, the town or the city.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's good. It's a bit... Do you know what? It's a bit of a romp, I would say.
Okay.
It's just fun. That's what I'll say about it.
Perfect time of the year to get a new sort of, like, podcast as well.
Perfect. That's what we need. I've been listening to all kinds of things recently as well. I've been listening to more true crime than I've ever listened to.
Yeah, interesting.
It's a time of year, isn't it?
I'm listening to lots of ghosty stuff. There's that BBC one, The Uncanny.
Uncanny.
Yeah, he's so sweet. Everything is like, oh, I had to go outside to my garden because I've had a shiver down my spine. But I think he's really earnest and it's very enjoyable. Jason Manford's story on that is one of the scariest things I've ever heard.
Oh, so I love a bit of uncanny. Also, Tim, who's not really into the supernatural, loves a bit of uncanny. He lives near me, the chap who
because he's like,
wrote
I'm
it.
at my garden in Walthamstow.
Yeah. I was like, oh, he lives near me. So Jason Manford listened to it, tweeted him and said, oh, I've been enjoying it. Then said, I've got a ghost story. And I remember saying to you, you've got to listen to it. Because I've listened to that story about 4 or 5 times. Yeah. It's really creepy.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't think Manford believes in ghosts. But it's really scary.
Mm.
Yeah, listen to it. And then we'll talk about it next episode. But we're not here to talk about other people's podcasts. We're here to do our podcast.
Can I just quickly tell you about this podcast I'm also obsessed with because it's so bad?
Go on. Because it's bad.
Yeah, we'll have to beep who it is.
Oh, amazing.
But
yes, please. Oh, God.
it is...
You will have to beep that because I have listened to it. And you know what I thought? This is everything I want. And then I was like, this is not very good.
It's terrible.
And after decades in broadcasting, you think it'd be a bit better.
At one point, she just reads... There's an episode on horror. And I was like, oh, amazing, I'll start with that. Just reads bits of books and goes, well, that's scary, innit? I can't fathom it out. And also she's like, at one point she goes, don't worry if you hear that in the background, it's not a ghost, it's just my dog. And it's like, whose first thought was the sound of toenails on a lino floor is a ghost?
It was either a dog or your ex-boyfriend. With those long old toenails. I have listened to that and I was actually quite disappointed. I did think it was going to be a lot better. But I think that was a lockdown project.
Yeah, but
which should have been better.
Yeah, and it has a producer as well, so it's like, oh, okay, like, there's several brains working on this, or well, I'd argue there's none, but, yeah, that is one of the biggest piles of shit. Well, on tour, we've been popping on in the car, and just my partner is really funny when he sort of, like, casually debunks stuff, so it's been a joy to watch that.
Amazing. Who are we doing? We don't know.
We don't actually know. This is an interesting... We always go off-piece slightly for the Halloween episode, and this is an unknown killer, which normally we don't like doing because we like to dig into their childhood and defend the women in their lives and slag off the men. But this is so fascinating. We thought it would be a really good Halloween episode.
It's the Thames Torso murders.
Which also overlaps with our very first episode about Jack the Ripper.
It does?
Yeah, because
it does.
It's a very similar time. There's some people who think that they are the same person.
Similar time, it's the same time, and it's clearly the same man.
Do you think so?
100% I think it's the same person. I really do feel that it is. I just think, we'll get to this a bit later on, I'm jumping the gun a bit. I genuinely think it's somebody involved with the police.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to believe that.
But let's get to our theories a bit later on.
Mm-hmm.
The Thames Torso murders, they're also referred to as the Thames Mysteries and the Embankment murders. They're unsolved. They took place in London between 1887 and 1889. And there were 4 incidents, and they call them the Canonical 4. I hate the word canonical.
Yes, because also it makes it sound like something from a graphic novel. You know, like...
Yeah, I just hate the word.
Canonical.
I just don't know what it is about. You know, certain words that rub you up the wrong way.
I don't actually have any of those, I don't think.
Do you know?
No, I know that you have quite violent reactions to some.
The one that I hate, but I don't know, just certain terms or phrases sometimes people use, you get a bit like...
My friend Ruth hates it when people use disliking the word moist as an entire personality.
Can I just say, I wholeheartedly agree with her. That is something that someone said once, and some people just went, yeah, I'm going to do that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a contagion, isn't it?
Yeah, there's certain... I don't know, you know, there's certain terms, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but when certain things that people say, I'm just like, oh, I hate it when people say that. Just, it's funny how you get the ick about things.
Yeah, there must be something that boils my piss, but I just can't think of it right now. There's no way that I'm laid back about anything. So there must be something.
What we'd like to know is, what boils your piss? Do write in.
That is still a stronger podcast idea than the one that I've been listening to for the past however long.
In fact, I think that Points of View, the programme we have on BBC One, should be called Here's What Boils My Piss.
I'm surprised that Channel 4 hasn't done an alternative that's like, here's what boils my piss. And then be like, hey, piss boilers. He's someone sat backwards on a chair.
Good luck boiling your piss this winter with the gas and electric prices rising. Only one of the victims in these cases were identified. It was very hard to identify any of them because no entire body was found, just various parts that were scattered along the River Thames in Rainham, Chelsea and central London.
Yes, I would like to start off by talking about the Thames mysteries, which come just before the Thames Torso. So they sort of carry on between 1873 and 1874. So it starts on the 5th of September. It's basically near Battersea Pier. And it was police that found a woman's torso basically stuck in the mud on the banks of the Thames River. I don't imagine there were any mudlarkers back then. What a day for the gram that would have been. So as the day goes on, they find more and more pieces of this poor woman. So they start with the torso, and then they find the other side of the torso, and then some pieces of lung, and it was awful. And then the next day, obviously because the Thames has quite a vast expanse of water, they find a woman's face and scalp that had been removed from her head, and this was near Limehouse. And then they got a thigh and a right shoulder. So they basically got this mechanical frame in the mortuary, and Dr. Kempster, who was the police surgeon, tried to rebuild this woman to sort of go, right, what are we dealing with? What, you know, are there any marks that would make her stand out? But I also feel like they didn't really know what they were doing, because they were like, give us that butcher's block. And then they stretched her face over it, and they were like, there you go. People can come in and see if this is their loved one. You're like, there's got to be a more sympathetic way of doing it than that. Like, there's got to be
grim
something you can... I don't know if papier-mâché was invented, but there's got to be something that you can wrap it around that isn't a butcher's block.
No, it's very make do and mend this. I'll just make do. There's no mending going on.
All they knew about her is that she's 40-ish and that she had quite thin hair that was dark colour. They thought on her left breast there was a burn.
Nothing like being hair shamed, is there?
Well, this is it. It's like there's another one that they refer to her as tall and well nourished, and you're like, did we need that detail? But it's also fascinating how some of them are identified. There's only one victim who's identified, and it's from the slightest of details. But this poor woman had a burn scar on her left breast, so they thought, right, well, that will make her stand out. But dozens and dozens of people who were looking for, missing women in their family, which shows you how common it was for women to go missing at that time, came through, and nothing. They all came through to look at her head on a butcher's block. Well, not even her head, sorry, her face and her scalp, and nothing. And then photos were distributed, and there was a reward put up, but nothing. That was it. So she's buried on September the 21st. So basically spend about 3 weeks on it, and they're like, right, get her gone. It's so horrible. The year after, something really similar happens. They find another woman, and they found her body excluding the head, the hands, and the feet. so they couldn't identify her. And they think that this is part of the MO, is that if you remove the head, it makes it much, much more difficult to identify. Do you think, Rachel Fairburn, that he was keeping them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the only thing I can think of. I mean, of course he was. 100%.
Yeah.
And what dates were all these ones? These are 18...
These are 1873 to 1874.
Ah, right. So this is very much before we get to what is called the Thames Torso murder.
Yeah, so this is all happening about the same time. Now, in the first instance, they said that the woman with the thin hair, they said, okay, well, she was murdered by blunt force trauma. Whatever they could see from the scalp and the face that was left, that this was a trauma and that had killed her, even though they had no skull. But because they had no head, the investigators of this other poor woman weren't able to determine a cause of death. But to me, again, that says that was a way of identifying them, and that was deliberately removed. So they basically, the only thing we know about these women is that we don't know them, and that it was decreed on their what's it called, like autopsy, that they died of willful murder against some person or persons unknown. That was the crime associated with them.
We should say as well, at the time that all these murders are happening, London was a miserable old place to live, especially if you were very poor, which likely all of the victims were. There was a lot of slums around. People were living in rooms with several families and animals.
I mean, it sounds like London now, mate.
To be honest, it really does, I think. People were living with pigs. They had cat killers around because cats were so out of control.
What? What's that?
Yeah, there was cats were just breeding a lot, so they had people who just killed cats.
Fucking hell.
Some people who couldn't afford to live in slums lived under railway arches. Some people, we mentioned this in the Jack the Ripper episode, would scrimp all day. What a miserable life that from the second you peel your eyes open, you're trying to find money that you can stay in a doss house. I mean, let's be honest, when you see homeless people who've got to find 18 quid to stay in a hostel, there's things as miserable now that are a hangover from Victorian London that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
Sewage was in the streets. Also, whenever someone says doss house, it always reminds me of like my mum or my grandma. Like, you know, you'll just you'll put your feet on the sofa just to relax for a little bit. It's not a fucking doss house. All right, okay. I'll just be as uncomfortable as you'd like me to be.
Yeah. Immediately finish your mug of tea and pop it on a coaster and be like, this isn't a doss house, you know. You're like, am I meant to have mastered perpetual motion while I'm here? I'll just stand on this. Because there was also, isn't that thing that if you couldn't afford a bed, you could pay to lean against a rope?
Yeah, just hang over a rope. Isn't that where the term hangover comes from?
And also showing you the ropes.
Ah. What a miserable fit that you've been in London, walking around all day, trying to get together just some money so you can have just the smallest bit of comfort. And that comfort is being slumped over a rope.
Yeah.
I mean,
also,
miserable.
Does this not... Okay, this is a paper-thin theory that I'm already regretting, but...
Keep going.
Like, alcoholism is absolutely rife. Amongst the richer people, opium abuse is absolutely rife. Mm-hmm. Unemployment is hugely high. There's, like, effluent on the street. So it means that disease is very, very common. Yeah. Syphilis is very common, like tertiary syphilis. And no one's getting any sleep and no one's nourished. I'm amazed that there aren't more murders, or I'm not surprised that murders are so common, because everyone must be clinically insane to be surviving in conditions like this.
Yeah, like depressed, miserable, stressed, tired, hungover.
It's all things that, like, if you put me through one of those, I'm unbearable. If you put me through two of them, I'm killing someone by the end of the day. And the fact that
it's not
4 or 5 are happening simultaneously, it just sounds like the seventh circle of hell. It seems absolutely awful.
It sounds horrific. Also, you've got to remember as well, the areas that this was happening, London was obviously a very busy dock area. The river at the time, I mean, the river's still filthy now, but the river at the time then was congested with ships arriving, with cargoes. There was people arriving from all over the world. The river was congested. It was filthy. People would just throw anything, literally any old shit in there. So it stank. It was miserable. People were filthy. People were dying. It's awful. And like you say, I'm not surprised that... I mean, there's probably murders... I mean, if you think about the slums, though, there are probably murders that happened in there that nobody found out
Oh, my
about.
God, there's definitely been... It happens now where I'm from, that, you know, people get drunk, someone throws a punch and someone bangs their head on a curb and that's it. Like, that's happened a few times in my local area over, you know, like 30 years. So when you get that many people with that many problems and undocumented as well, there's lots of immigration in London and undocumented, you know, you just would get someone, you'd pay someone whatever, a shilling to help you throw them in the Thames. You just would.
Yeah. I remember a lot of the time as well, many women living in poverty would turn into sex work as well, just to survive. It really was the worst of times.
I would love to read, and I'm sure there's a book out there, how many men were engaged in sex work as well. Because there's always a massive focus on women performing sex work in Victorian times. But there must have been men as well.
Maybe. I mean, I'm sure it went on, but I would say not half as much as...
No.
I don't know.
But, I mean, like, there's absolutely no way there wasn't young guys who were, especially when it was illegal, you know, rich, wealthy gay men paying them for sex. There's absolutely no way that wasn't going on.
Miserable fucking times on it.
Yeah.
So many. But also, you know what I always think about the old days like this? Even if you were rich, you probably stank as well.
Oh, I was just thinking about, because the Shelleys, Percy and Mary, sort of pop into this story vicariously. And I was thinking that, oh, well, they would have been rich. What's their life like? And be like, oh, so terrible. Like, even being rich, like, you still stink. You've probably still got syphilis.
Yeah.
And you've probably still got, you know, huge cases of infant mortality. Like, no one was having a nice time in Victorian London.
No, utterly miserable. Utterly miserable. Now, something happens on October 24th, 1884. A woman's remains were found in central London. This was near Tottenham Court Road in central London. It was a woman's remains, including a skull with flesh attached and a chunk of thigh bone. Near this site where the skull and the thigh bone were found, in Bedford Square, which was very nearby, they found a woman's arm in a parcel. Now, the arm was tattooed, which was an indication it might have been a sex worker or someone who was a bit, you know, a bit different.
So what? Were
the tattoo
tattoos
was, nobody-
only associated with sex workers then?
Sex workers and sailors, maybe. I don't know. I suppose it was maybe it was unusual for a woman to have a tattoo. I'm not sure.
It would explain
I don't know that much about
the
it.
stigma that happens, you know, with the older generation over tattoos now.
Yeah, I don't know, though. I think that's dying out now. Because if you think about it, most people who are older now were brought up in, like, were out and about in the 60s and the 70s. So I think less people give a shit. I think it's actually probably it's quite an outdated thing now that people say, oh, old people don't like tattoos on younger people. Because I think that's a thing that was probably true about 30 years ago.
I'm just thinking about
less people give a shit.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm just thinking about the, you know, the people I know who have been a bit like, oh, tattoos will hold you back, have been older people, but actually not that much older. I'm thinking about teachers in school. Yeah, still, the facial tattoo remains a bit of a taboo.
Yeah, I know someone who's got a lot of facial tattoos, and it's not my bag, and I do think you've got to be quite ballsy to have them. I just find it's not for me. I mean, people can do what they want, but I understand why a lot of places won't do facial tattoos. I think
They won't do them.
Young people. No,
I didn't know that.
A lot of places, if you want facial tattoos, you have to be pretty heavily tattooed already.
Wow.
A lot of places won't tattoo hands, and they won't tattoo your face. In fact, my friend's brother is a tattoo artist, and he has said to people who've just come in and said, you know, I want my hands tattooed, and they haven't really got any other tattoos. He's like, I'm not going to do that.
Interesting.
So there is still... He said, he's like, especially if they're quite young, he said, I just say I'm not going to do that. But he said if someone is heavily tattooed and they want to go for something on the face, he thinks about it, and sometimes, yes, he will do it.
So is the idea that because you see them every single day and they're prominent, if you're not happy with it, it's more likely to be like life-changing?
Yes, that is a factor. Also, I think you've got to factor you don't know about somebody's mental health. So I guess you've got to get a vibe of, is this person going to regret this later? Is this person, you know... It's all fine and well signing a disclaimer, isn't it? But if you've tattooed someone's face and then they regret it later on, you're going to feel pretty shit about it, I think, aren't you?
Okay, interesting. So it's not necessarily that they would get sued, it's more that they're just trying to be responsible to their patrons.
Yes. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are tattoo artists who could walk in and say, can you tattoo my face? They wouldn't give a shit. But I do think, speaking of, you know, my friend's brother, I do think that, you know, there is a degree of responsibility if you are a ethical tattoo artist, I would say.
Well, I think we've got lots of tattoo artists who listen, so let us know. I'm very interested about the moral, ethical reasons behind the lack of face thing, because I've just found out about that, didn't know that.
On the subject of tattoos, I was going to have a tattoo removed recently, and I had one session, and the pain of that removal was so intense that I will not have it now removed.
Really?
So I'm talking, it fucking hurts, right? So, because I've got a tattoo on my ankle of a cat that I've had since I was 13 years old. Don't judge me, don't at me. And I was thinking I'm going to get it removed. But, as I say, it feels like 1,000 elastic bands slapping against you for... And it's only quick, it's only for a few seconds, but it really, really hurts. So what I want, I'm just going to get it done over with something.
Oh, great.
So if anyone is a tattoo artist and would like to tattoo me, for money, of course, I'm going to pay you. Let's talk.
What do you want?
Let's do something. I'm thinking, because I've got quite an old school tattoo on my inner left leg. It's quite an old, you know, that style, the vintage style. So I'm thinking, I want something classic, like a flower of some description. You know, like a rose, an old-fashioned style. Something basic that's going to cover that up, that isn't too wacky.
Timeless, you're after.
Timeless, there we go.
Great.
But we'll fight. We'll see. We shall see.
I shan't be getting another tattoo again.
No, why not?
I just think one's enough.
Do you know, I like the cut of your jib with this. You've got one, you're happy.
Yeah.
I like it.
Something big would have to come along that made me want to get, you know, something somewhere else.
Well, if the Queen dies and you didn't get a tattoo, that's it.
Well, that's the one tattoo I have, of course, is it's a tattoo of the Q. It goes from my little toe all the way up to around my neck.
The Q. Oh, don't. I can't live in this country anymore. I honestly, you know when people say, this isn't real and we're living in a simulation?
Yeah.
I genuinely sometimes think, yeah, I can actually get on board with that theory.
Yeah.
I can believe it.
I wonder if in the simulation the queue is like, you know, when you play computer games, there's side levels. So you've got to go and do like another task to get some bonus points to get like a...
Yeah.
If you went and completed the queue, it means that you like unlocked something that makes it another level much easier later on.
My friend James works in the Houses of Parliament.
Oh, yes.
And he actually got to go and see the coffin because his office is pretty much next to Westminster Hall. The door sort of opens out onto it. So he got to, because he works there, he was ushered to the front of the queue, which wasn't very popular with people who'd been queuing for 14 hours to see the coffin. And I said, what did you do when you got there? He went, well, I didn't really know what to do, so I just nodded at it. As if he was like, all right.
We've been through this, but she 100% wasn't in there. But
oh, no, I think she was.
No!
Yes, she 100% she was. I don't know why people would think that she wasn't.
What a fucking
100%.
Huge security risk to have a cadaver in that box with that many people passing by. That being such a high terrorist risk. Like,
yeah, but
even if there was an earthquake, Rachel, and she falls out the box, like...
But the Queen... See, the thing is, it wouldn't... I just don't understand why people think that she wasn't in there, because the Queen travelled around alive and was a huge security risk. So, but when she's dead, I don't understand why people would think she wasn't.
Also, they've got to get her ready for stuff. Like, it just is too much of a. It's just too much of a risk. Too much of a risk.
No, the thing is, the Queen, when she was alive, was a huge security risk. The Queen alive would have been better as a terrorist target, as, you know, if you're going to make a point, when the Queen was alive would have been the time to do it. But I think she's dead. She's in a lead-lined coffin. Even if somebody did decide to do something, there's not really much you can do.
I don't know. I think
yeah, I'm 100% she was in that box.
No, she's so...
Sick. It's funny, it's funny how you got sick of the sight of a coffin, isn't it? Oh, you again. How did we get onto this?
Sorry.
I can't remember.
Well, we were talking about dosshouses, weren't we?
That was it. Okay. The Queen never went in a doss house.
Dosshouses and tattoos is what we're talking about.
Oh, well, that's a great autobiography title.
Yeah, that's Shay McGowan, Dosshouses and tattoos.
Yes. So then, 5 days after the woman's arm has been found, a human torso was found by a police constable at 33 Fitzroy Square. Now, the inquest concluded the body parts were from a woman. They also remarked on how the person who had cut them up was skilled, but they clearly hadn't cut them up for anatomical purposes. This was somebody who was not using the body for medical reasons. They just fancied chopping somebody up. Those two incidents, of course, remain unsolved. There is the next thing that happened, though, is the Rainham mystery, which is thought of as the first Thames Torso murder. Yeah. So this is the Rainham mystery. It was 3 years later, after the previous event, that... so this was...
May 1887.
Yeah. Between May and June 1887, all this happened. In May, a woman's torso was found by some workers who were working on the Thames.
It just was bobbing along.
It was in like a bundle. Yeah.
And they thought it was...
floating in the water.
Because there was loads of stuff that often got dropped in the Thames of value as well. You know, like cargo would fall off of ships, or, you know, stuff would be dumped by smugglers. So they were like, hello. And they saw this sort of like package floating towards them, and they were like, yes, please. And then they hooked it onto their ship, opened it a little bit, and were like, oh no, it's full of woman.
Yes. Over the next few weeks, various parts of the same body were found near Blackfriars Bridge. At 10 a.m, a pierman, he saw another parcel in the water, and he thought, oh, what's this? And it had a thigh in it. On the very same day, the neck and arms. The neck, that's horrible, isn't it? Just the neck. They were found in Battersea. A week later, in Regent's Canal, 2 legs were found. The upper chest and the head of this person remained missing. Now, the torso that was found had been in the water a while, and they concluded it had probably been dead for about 2 weeks. All they could ascertain was the victim was around 5'3" to 5'4", was thought to have brown hair. I mean, people said, oh, how did they know that? Well, I'm sure that there would have been bits of body hair still on the body. She was in her late 20s to 35, had never given birth. The torso
How
had
do you
been
tell
in the
that?
water. I assume from the womb in the torso. I don't know. I assume that's how... I was going to say, if you know, please don't tell me, because it makes me feel sick. The torso had been in the water longer than the other limbs. So these were bits that were obviously being thrown in... Ugh, this is disgusting. So police obviously appealed to people and said, if you've got any missing female family members, please come forward. Nobody came forward. The investigation concluded that, again, the body hadn't been dissected for medical purposes, yet a degree of medical knowledge had been needed for performing dissection due to the clean cuts on the body. No cause of death could be established. The jury that was brought in for the inquest was forced to return a verdict of found dead. The story didn't even make the front page news because London was such a violent city and murder was relatively common.
That's awful. Also, how dare they pat themselves on the back for... And I'm talking about the politics of the time, not the politics of now in relation to genitalia and gender, but they basically find this body with a vagina that's dead and go, the only thing we can truly say is that this is a woman who was found dead, and we're like, oh, thank God the fucking professionals are here.
Yeah.
Like, come on, lads. Fucking hell.
Yeah, thank God the educated people are here to tell us what happened.
I can confidently say that this woman is not alive.
Yeah. One thing we do know is that she's dead. Then, shortly afterwards, we get the Whitehall mystery, or as I like to say, why is Jack's dad now on TV?
And his mum, they've got a podcast together.
Don't fucking get me started.
No, I do want to get you started, actually.
If I have to deal with seeing another male comedian and a relative or a wife who, heaven forfend, television should put two women on something together. Heaven forfend. But if a man has a, mother-in-law, if a man has a, sister-in-law or a brother or whatever, doesn't matter if these people have any experience within the world of entertainment, whack them on the TV. It has to stop. It is becoming an absolute insult to women.
It's so funny that, like, when you get into stand-up, there's obviously, as a female, like, the era that we started in, you're told that you're in competition with other women, and that takes quite a lot of undoing. And then you get to the point where you're lucky enough to be doing TV and radio, and you're like, oh no, weirdly, I'm also in competition. I thought my job was to be funny and that was enough, but now I'm in competition with, like, reality TV stars and celebrities.
Yeah.
And then now we're in the era, like, no, my real competition is someone's mum.
Yeah, they never put a woman and a mother on anything. They never put a woman and, a friend on anything. They will always put a man because, let's face it, women are supporting roles to the main character of male. And I cannot... what next? I am done with it. It's an insult to so many talented people. Like, I don't want to know who someone's mum is. I couldn't give a fuck. It happened once, and I think that was absolutely fine because it was a fresh idea. But it's just everyone now. It either...
So let your mums retire.
Yeah, also, why does your mum want to be on television? I don't... Look, this is what I think about it, and I just feel if there's a place for it, pop it on there. But also take a chance and put two women on something.
If you really want to take a chance, put me and my dad on something. You'll get some fucking spicy old views then.
Oh, God. Yeah, but you see, you wouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, rightly so. Because he takes his teeth out at the table and then licks the stuff that's on them off.
No, actually, I think we need more of that.
My mum would rather die than be on touch. She's refused to do anything that... Rightly so, because she's very, very shy. So she's like, no, absolutely not. You made this choice, not me. And I would never hold that against her.
My mum won't even have a photograph taken.
Really?
I haven't got any... I've got one photograph of my mother. One. And that was taken when she worked at Butlins on Barry Island when she was in her early 20s. I have one photograph, right? I have no photographs of me and my mum together.
Wow.
There are no photographs of her. And I used to say this, if she goes missing, we're fucked. There's no photograph of her that we could say, we're looking for this woman.
Fucking hell.
I've got a drawer now, have I? We're fucking looking for Dennis the Menace. Sonic the Hedgehog. Bart Simpson. And the fucking things I can draw.
Why is that then?
She just hates having a photograph taken. Always has done and just won't do it. Will not do it. We've got no photographs of us as a family. I've got no photographs of me, my mum, my dad and my sister together. None.
Wow.
It's bizarre, isn't it? But each to their own. And no, my mum wouldn't go on TV either. She's very shy as well.
What about your dad?
Absolutely not. No way. Would your dad?
He has done in the comedy bus.
Oh, he has done, of course. He did, didn't he?
Yeah, and he's popped.
Yeah, no, my mum wouldn't, and neither would my sister. In fact, someone asked me and my sister to go on a podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And I asked my sister, and she was like, oh, I don't think I'd be comfortable doing that. So I was like, totally fine. It's you forget, don't you? Because we do this, we always assume everyone else is fine with it, but totally understand it.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm honest, I'm sorry I got involved.
My brothers did a podcast and made a sibling one. I think one of them was fine about it, and then one of them really struggled afterwards, I think, with... I mean, loads got edited out. About half an hour got edited out because they thought it was too distressing. But I think he really struggled with the idea of, like... he just sort of talking, and then it's like, oh, people are going to listen to this. And we're used to that now. We're used to, like, understanding that what you say has repercussions, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's... it must be quite strange, I think, if you're not used to... I mean, the thing is, everyone fucking knows everything about me anyway. But yeah, I think it was the same podcast. It was the sibling podcast.
Yeah, the Masons.
I know which one you mean. Yeah. And I asked my sister, and then I thought, it's not really fair, is it? But also, I don't really explore my relationship with my sister anyway. So I wouldn't want to start doing it on a unraveling it on a podcast that everyone can hear.
Yeah.
The thought of it's making me go cold. So, where were we up to?
Well, we were about to start the Whitehall mystery, which is an unlucky date, September the 11th. But this one's 1883. No, 1888.
This is 1888. We also know something else happens in 1888, doesn't it? Is this Jack the Ripper time?
Yes.
The dismembered remains of another woman were found. The remains were found over 3 separate sites in the centre of London, including the future site of Scotland Yard, the police's headquarters, which was being built at the time. Jack the Ripper had started his killings by this point. Everyone was talking about Jack the Ripper.
Yes, Mary Ann or Polly Nichols and Annie Chapman had been killed around this time. So this is September the 11th.
Yeah.
And Polly Nichols was August 13th and September 8th. So this is really... And the Dear Boss letter was about to be sent as well. So it was September 27th, but there was a lot of... the Jack the Ripper thing was sort of gaining momentum, but wasn't at the, like, full-on, everyone is talking about it all the time. This Scotland Yard thing is fascinating to me, because it was like an open site as they were building new Scotland Yard, rather. And this is so weird. This guy was like, I don't want to carry all my tools home. So he hid them on the building site behind, like, a board. And when he put his hand in there to get them the next day... there was like a parcel, like a wrapped up thing in the way, and he was like, haha, it must be someone else hiding their tools. Anyway, the next day he comes back and, he's doing this, he's hiding it behind, and after a few days he's like, that package fucking stinks. And he had just assumed before that it was someone doing the same thing as him, because you weren't meant to leave your stuff there and you didn't want anyone to rob it, so he didn't say anything to anyone. But then he goes to, like, the foreman and said, listen, there's a parcel behind here and it really smells, and that's when they opened it up. And they found the body parts, which at first they blamed on medical students, which was a common thing. The bits of body would turn up in London at this time, and they go, it's medical students.
Because bizarrely, just before this, on the 11th September, they'd found a right arm and a shoulder on the Thames embankment in Pimlico. Now, Pimlico was quite a posh area at the time, still is to a degree. The police were just like, oh yeah, that'll be those medical students again. Which is bizarre. But they also they were like, oh, actually, maybe this isn't medical students, because they found another arm. Then this worker finds this torso in this... It was wrapped in fabric, tied up with string. These are a few of my favourite things. Torsos in fabric infested with maggots.
Oh, yeah, it was covered in maggots, wasn't it?
Covered in maggots. It had been severed at the neck and above the pelvis. The body didn't have any visible marks or scars. She was a brunette with good organs. The organs were not too affected by the pollution levels at the time. The cuts to the body...
Does that mean she wasn't local, do you reckon?
Could be.
New to town, anyway.
Could very much be that, I think. Yeah. I think that's probably accurate, I would say. I always imagine somebody from the countryside, maybe somebody who's come over from Ireland, that kind of thing. Yeah. That's probably...
Yeah, there was a lot of Irish immigration at this time.
Now, the cuts to the body were very clean, and the police started to look for other body parts. Somebody on the 29th of September had reported seeing 3 men with a wheelbarrow and a package. Now, this was put out to the public, and one of the men came forward and said, yeah, that was me and my friends, but there wasn't a torso in there. So they were just like, okay. They think the person who left the torso in these vaults where the workers' tools were, they think they would have had to have known the place because it was so dark in there that a lot of the workers just found the way around from memory and also along the walls and, knowing where all the nooks and crannies were. Soon afterwards, a reporter, with permission from the police and help from a labourer, got his dog, and they used the dog to find the lower part of a left leg and left arm that had been there quite a while. So this means whoever had left them had been in the vault more than once, because the torso was fresher than the legs and the arm they found.
Oh, fuck no.
It's disgusting. I think it's the person who's left this body in the new headquarters. I think obviously they did that on purpose because they're building police headquarters. I also think it's a copper.
Yeah.
I just think it's someone who's got involvement with the police, and I don't know.
But there's too much medical knowledge. So that we talked about the fact that the arm was tourniqueted before it had been dismembered. So Dr. Bond and Dr. Hebert, who were medical professionals who were overseeing this this poor woman. Do you know what's mad as well? There's loads of because obviously there's no photographs there. Loads of sort of artist impressions, and they're really graphic. They're really there's one I'm looking at here, which is the sketches of the Whitehall mystery, and it is just a torso on a slab with three men stood around it with their hands on their hips, and it's
with that,
yeah, they're literally doing faces. But they noticed that this the right arm had been tourniqueted, which, by the way, guys, if anyone's done first aid recently, the tourniquet's back.
Is it? I didn't know it had ever gone away.
Well, it had gone away because this is bad. Apparently what had happened is people were putting on tourniquets when they shouldn't have been and causing more damage than if...
What?
Because a tourniquet is obviously to stop the blood flow.
Yeah.
And they'd always been trained, don't do a tourniquet. And basically the last sort of 5 years it had fallen out of fashion because people were going, God, there's so much bleeding, and then put a tourniquet on and then cause nerve damage or put it on when they shouldn't have done. So they were like, listen, these are idiots doing amateur first aid. Chances are they don't need a tourniquet. But this is quite dark. The tourniquet is back in first aid. And why do you think that is?
Why do I think that is?
What would happen in the last sort of 4 years that would mean that...
Well, I was going to say, are we expecting, because of terrorist activity...
Yeah.
And
exactly
because of potential war.
Yeah. It's terrorist attacks.
Really?
Yeah. Because there's been enough significant large-scale terrorist attacks that actually people knowing how to use a tourniquet would have been really useful.
Ugh.
Scary, innit?
The tourniquet's back.
Guess who's back? Back again.
The Yves Saint Laurent tourniquet.
So they thought, right, well, this is a medical thing. So this means that... whoever's chopping this up has some medical knowledge and of anatomy as well. This is a poor woman as well that they decide she's of large stature and well-nourished. Yeah.
Okay.
Again.
Very kind. Actually quite kind for the time.
It is. But again, that's all they say is basically she's fat and the only thing they were willing to risk is found dead.
Oh. Found dead.
Found dead and well-nourished.
We do know all the limbs, of course, they did say belong to the same person. Mm-hmm. The person had a very healthy heart, though, apparently.
I think this means that they were new to the area. Well, they're only 24 anyway. Well, approximately 24. So you would expect that, they would be in sort of good health. But the fact that their lungs weren't completely fucked from London, I think they had just arrived in town. And unfortunately, probably the fact that they didn't know the area very well.
I'm new in town with my good heart,
yes,
and my sturdy stature.
Come and hang me over a rope. I think that someone would have preyed on them because they were vulnerable in that respect.
Yeah. On the 4th of June 1889, this is where we get to the only named victim. Another female torso was found in the Thames. If anything, it's getting boring now.
It's 3 little lads who find it. They're knocking around in the Thames. Get them away from there. They're going to end up with fucking cholera. It's near Battersea Park under the Albert Bridge. So they see something on the shore lapping up in the embankment, and they were like, oh boy, it's a human arm. So fair fucks to these lads. They, rather than calling for the police or going and getting them, they just wrap up the arm and they march up to Scotland Yard. They go, we found an arm.
God. Oh, it's a day out.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, they've dined out on that for a long time.
Oh. That was the story.
Dr. Kempster, who's overseen a lot of these body parts and bodies being found, has decided it had been in the water for not very long, 24 hours at most, but it was wrapped up. This is the really interesting thing. So it was wrapped up in a pair of women's knickers that had L.E. Fisher on them, and also some sections of overcoat that were dark, which is I guess every overcoat is what I thought. But those sections of overcoat are what lead to her being identified and us now knowing that was Elizabeth Jackson. Even though the knickers said Ellie Fisher, what chances are what happened is she had bought the knickers second-hand.
Yes, or the person was living in a shared environment, which meant that clothes often got mixed up or stolen. They found other parts of the body. They found the liver near Nine Elms, upper part of the body in Battersea Park, the neck and shoulders also in Battersea. On the Friday, they found the right foot and part of the leg in Wandsworth, left leg and foot in Limehouse. On the Saturday, this is like the worst Craig David song, Saturday, they left arm and the hand at Bankside, buttocks and pelvis at Battersea, right thigh at Chelsea Embankment, and they found the right arm and hand at Bankside.
Do you think that this murderer dropped them all in at the same point, or would throw them, out the bus window along the route?
How do you mean? Do you think
that they were being dispersed naturally by the Thames, as in they were dropped in one place and they ended up in different places, or do you think that this person was dropping them off in different places?
I think they were dropping them off in different places.
Interesting.
Because of the level of some decomposition.
Yes.
But yeah, I do think this person was keeping these and doing this to, I've left this here. And I definitely think they were dispersed like that.
Now, the coroner is quite famous. His name is Dr. Braxton Hicks.
Yes. So the inquest was Mr. Braxton Hicks. His father, John Braxton Hicks, is whom the practice contractions that women have during pregnancy, he first wrote about them. I can't imagine anything worse than contraction. I think I've got a bit of a phobia about pregnancy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I do. I find it quite gross.
Oh, me too. The idea of something growing inside of me, not for me. And also there's the perceived pain of what that would feel like getting them out is no, there's nothing.
Can I be awful? I'm at an age now where a lot of my friends are having children. I don't want to see the scan.
You are being awful. It's one of those things that you have to pretend to care about, I think. If you're not naturally excited by stuff like that, I think you have to. And I say this as someone who was recently bollocked on a WhatsApp group for not replying to the picture of the scan.
But I just feel it's like, I know this doesn't sound awful. Nobody considers my boundaries. I don't want to see it. I've seen it. Well done, congratulations. I've passed on my well wishes.
I really want to see it if it looks fucking weird. If it's got a tail and some horns. Show me then. But if it looks like every other one, then I am going to shrug at it.
If it's got Mickey Mouse ears on, or it's smoking. Show me then.
Can I check? Do you have him as Dr. Braxton Hicks or Mr. Braxton Hicks?
I've got Mr. Braxton Hicks.
Which means he's a surgeon.
Ah.
So I found this out from Absolute Clang here, doing the voiceover for Embarrassing Bodies, that anytime there was a surgeon, he would be a Mr. or a Mrs.
Interesting.
And a doctor is a doctor. And it's because around about this time, surgeons were perceived as not much better than butchers. Because I think it came from the world of when, surgery was done by hairdressers. So doctors were professionals who were educated and had training, and surgeons were glorified butchers. So that's why they never were allowed to call themselves doctor. They would always be Mr. And that carries on today.
Interesting.
Isn't that a good fact?
It is a good fact.
I hope it's true, but...
That is a good fact. That'll probably be something on in a pub quiz. What title would a surgeon have?
Yes. But they said Dr. Braxton Hicks, I've got him as Doctor, but Mr., whichever one he is, he said, listen, this isn't skillfully dissected, but they do understand their way around a body. And he said that it was, he said it's not a medical profession, he says, but rather that of a butcher or a knacker.
A knacker, yeah.
Knacker is a very often used insult in my household, because obviously we're sort of farming and horse people. And, the knacker's yard is where you send horses to be put down.
Yeah, I'm knackered. Yeah. There's a slang term for you. I guess Americans, it's a very British slang word, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Is that not out there?
No, I think it's very British. A knacker is somebody who clears animal carcasses. Yes. Lovely stuff. No, thank you. The victim that we are discussing, very unpleasant fact here, was also 8 months pregnant. The child had been removed by incision into the uterus after her death. They assumed that the child had died. Initially, they thought maybe this is an illegal abortion gone wrong, but this was dismissed. I mean that would have had to go very wrong for that to be the case. The cause of death wasn't decided, but it was willful murder against some person or persons unknown. Now, the victim's head was never found, which I 100% think this guy was keeping him. Never found. But she was identified as Elizabeth Jackson, who was a homeless sex worker from Chelsea. Now, her family had expressed concern previously because she'd gone missing at the end of May. She had a very recognisable scar on her wrist and other features that they could identify her by. She was living at a lodging house despite having family nearby, and they think that she was picking up clients for her sex work in Battersea Park.
She was originally from Ireland. She'd emigrated over from County Cork, but was at the time she was homeless and working in the sex trade around Soho. The press immediately said this is a Ripper case, even though he'd been quiet for several months. And they even lied and said, "Oh, he sent us some letters, and that turned out to be bullshit." But yes, it's amazing that her friend, I'm trying to find the name of her friend, I can't find it here, was like, hold on, a dark overcoat, that's my friend. Which I'm like, fair fucks if you've only got one friend with a dark overcoat in Victoria, London. But I also think it was the fact that she was, 8 months pregnant would be quite unusual. Yes. And then the scar, there was just enough identifying features, but obviously the name was a bit of a confusion on the underwear. Mm-hmm. They also think that this shows, again, the killer being sort of mischievous, in that he's
a right little type, isn't he?
Well, he dumped one body in Scotland Yard and he'd thrown the right thigh over the wall of the Shelley estate, which was Percy and Mary Shelley's estate that they lived on. Obviously, Mary Shelley's the author of Frankenstein. Do you think that was a coincidence or planned?
Could have been planned, because what is the monster made of?
Yeah.
Bits and parts and things like that.
And I guess everyone would have known. They would have been celebrities, especially because of her association with Byron. They would have been massive celebrities, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think that was probably... Either it was a strange coincidence, but I think that was probably done on purpose.
And does that match, then, with the, this kind of weird sense of humour? Do you think that matches with Jack the Ripper? Because I don't.
I mean, I don't think it's a sense of humour.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. But,
he's got a wonderful sense of humour.
Satire? I don't know what to call it, what they're doing.
I do. I don't know. See, it's difficult, this. I just think it's the same person who is... And let's face it, I mean, all right, it's a different modus operandi. But I just think there's too many coincidences. I think... Of course, Jack the Ripper was frenzied attacks, but I think if this was somebody who just enjoyed cutting up bodies, I don't know. I think the interactions, it's clearly someone who's not thick, who has a knowledge of things like, where Scotland Yard is, who lives in what house. I don't know, it's a difficult one. I just do think it's the same person.
Well, the one that we're coming on to now is the one most associated with Jack the Ripper.
Yes. So this is the Pinchin Street Torso murder. September the 10th, 1889.
Isn't it interesting that the other one was September the 11th? Like, they're killing around this same time, so August, September time?
Yeah, which is why, Jack the Ripper was around these times.
Also, when the kids go back to school, it's a teacher. There we go.
It's a teacher, 100%.
Blowing off steam at the start of term.
This is 5:15am. Police Constable William Pennant... he finds the headless and legless torso of an unidentified dark-haired woman under a railway arch in Pinchin Street in Whitechapel. Now, the woman was aged between 30 and 40. The arms were nearby, and the body was beginning to decompose. So they think the victim had clearly been killed somewhere else because there wasn't any blood at the scene. She had extensive bruising on her back, hip and arm, which indicated she had been severely beaten before death. And death had occurred around 1 day before the discovery of the torso. Her abdomen was extensively mutilated in a similar way to the Ripper, but her genitals were left intact. And as we know, Jack the Ripper liked to have a go at those as well. It's thought that the body was carried to the location in an old chemise. Is that how you say it?
Chemise?
Chemise? Chemise?
Chemise, I think.
No other parts of her body were ever found, and she was never identified.
Yeah, and it was found by was a William Pennant, the PC who found her. He had patrolled that area like 15 minutes earlier, and she wasn't there.
Ugh.
So he immediately called for police swarming all over the area, and they thought
with his whistle.
They did the whistle, and they arrested 3 men, but they were all absolutely hammered and asleep, and were like, "What's going on here?" And obviously, not covered in blood is a big thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, whoever it was got away. But I think they were also probably watching somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, also, I suppose a torso is quite heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big part of your body. What would it weigh? I don't know.
There's a couple of stones.
2 arms, the arms as well. I just imagine somebody throwing them out of a horse and carriage. That's what I imagine.
But not many people had a horse and carriage, or are you saying this person's wealthy?
Could be a wealthy person, or it could be... I mean, you could flag one down, couldn't you?
Yeah, but not...
Back in the
and
day.
go, "Oh, don't mind me as I throw a torso out." Unless they were a cab driver.
Could have been a cab driver. I just think you'd notice if... But then again, this person could have been hiding. They could have been hiding. They could have secreted themselves somewhere and lay in wait until the time was right.
Yeah, that's true.
But also, this is Victorian London. It is dark. And this person, like Jack the Ripper, clearly knew the area very well.
Yeah.
So...
I know the East End just seems like an absolute Wild West at that point anyway. The poor woman's body was laid to rest in East London Cemetery, which a lot of them were also buried in. Mm-hmm. Do you know what they think as well? That obviously everyone was obsessed with Jack the Ripper, but they think that the reason why this even though this has gruesome, the same era, same kind of just as prolific, that they're like, yeah, but it's not as glamorous because we've got no idea who it is. And ripperologists all want to be sort of like armchair detectives and go, "I think you'll find." And it's my theory. In fact, one of the things that I was reading about underneath it is a guy who writes maybe 3 times as long as the actual article about this, on why he thinks that it was George Chapman who was Jack the Ripper. It's like, this isn't even about Jack the Ripper. And it's like, in conclusion on my essay, I'm like, this is in the comments section of some case.
Oh my God. Can I just say as well, as a footnote to this podcast, if you are, in inverted commas, a ripperologist, incel, please do not contact either of us with your theories. I don't actually care. If you do, I will 100% just block you. This is a podcast for entertainment purposes primarily. I do not want to hear your theories on anything, be that Jack the Ripper and to why women are the way they are. I'm not interested, just to put that out there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't give you the time of day in real life, so please do not.
I don't think any ripperologists are going to contact us. I think they know. I think they know better than that.
Well, they wouldn't have got this far. I mean, 2 women are talking, so...
Yeah. That is the Thames Torso murders. Awful.
It is.
Other than Elizabeth Jackson, we've got no idea who these poor women were. And, most we know about them is that they were found dead. And one of them was fat-shamed.
Yes. And someone was hair-shamed. That's all we know.
And that one's fat.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so thank you so much for listening, and thanks for supporting us over 8 years of doing this podcast.
Blimey, O'Reilly.
I know.
Yeah, thank you. You're on tour?
I'm on tour still, yes, I'm on tour. Not long left now, just generally. Yeah, I'm on tour until about the end of November. So, yes, I've got a massive show in London in a few days' time. It would be amazing to see you there. Yes, that's what's going on for me, really. Yeah,
Christmas is coming.
Yes.
We've got some new merch planned for you all.
Oh my God, the merch. I'm hoping it will be released by the time that because we're recording this one a little bit early, released by the time that you are, or maybe we'll try and release it today.
Be nice, wouldn't it?
I think it's the best stuff we've ever done. Loads of
it's pretty good.
Limited edition stuff, and we're trying to work with small businesses as well that we love. So yeah, I'm very excited. Oh, and we'll leave a gap here. This is me, Kiri Pritchard-McLean, filling in the gap. We are doing a Christmas show on the 20th of December at the Birmingham Glee. It should be on sale right now. If you're on our mailing list, you'll have been sent a link for it already. It's only a small venue, so please book your tickets to avoid disappointment, and we will see you on the 20th of December for a festive murderous Christmas special. See you then. In case I'll drop in an advert for the Christmas show.
Lovely. Smashing. I can't even say smashing. Fucking hell. What's happened to me? Smashing. Smashing. Social murders. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye-bye.